look at raising achievement within exam groups. There's a couple of strategies that we had to look at a couple of years ago in PE that I'm going to share with you. It's interesting to see that some people are using the same exam boards as we are. And, you know, basically, I'm just going to share a few ideas, show you a few materials that we use. Most people might use these ideas anyway, but it's just worked really well for the PE department. So we're, you know, I'll share them with you and then we'll go from there. Right, little scenario I'm going to give you. You alright there, Dave? Do you want to be a bit closer? Yeah, just struggling with that. Right, scenario. We've just finished the exams in the summer, okay, and we've got the unhappy people in the Falcon colours, and then we've got the happy people. The first thing we do, we get all the GCSE results in, and I want you to put yourself at the end of that summer, you're just finishing your summer holiday, you get your exam results as a curriculum leader or whatever, or you get your subject results for a group. You then start to attribute. You start to say, right, what went well, what didn't go so well, why were I successful, why weren't I successful, okay? We always do it. I have a nightmare in the summer, and I know Vicky will. She'll be looking at all these groups. Mark will have seen her the day before and start going crazy. And we attribute, right, what have I done, what, you know, why were we successful, why were we, you know, lacking, and why were there a bit of failure? This is what I want you to answer very quickly in groups. What strategies, ideas have you used within your subject areas to improve practice if results were disappointing? Just speak to the person next to you. Okay, there's a couple of ideas on there. Okay, what things could you use when those results or a little bit of a group hasn't gone quite well? Just have 2 minutes. Have a little chat.
Yeah, I think we've looked at which exam we use to see if the teachers are right, use that to the best exam we can get the kids to get it. So just the work we do.
For me,
Yeah. Thanks, John, as well. Look, you did.
Another minute.
Hello, Mr. Kelly.
We were slightly early, Sarah. We're getting cajoled into it. I didn't want you here after beating me last night anyway with table tennis.
so any just?
Did he?
Yeah, he did. Brilliant. Yeah. Just to give
Well,
you
I had to stop off the second match because he was rapidly improving, so I had to quit while I was ahead. Avoided like 8 last night.
just having a little chat about
which bits have we not was it the exam, and if it was the exam, which questions in particular to try to improve people have then changed their approach and so you realise we spent too long before
30 seconds.
Well, that's been a discussion.
No, exactly.
Get me up with film.
Yeah, and they didn't answer the questions well enough. So no matter how well they done, they were never going to get through. Right, then you'll think feedback. Oh, you're right there.
Well, I don't want to be in the way of the film.
Oh.
Is it, if I sit here, it'll be okay? Will that be in the way of the film?
Yes, I've said to other schools to use our board. Did you get the same sort of
Okay, should we just pull it in?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Kenner. Okay, right. let's share a couple of ideas. Anybody want to throw any ideas out about, you know, what we can do? There's loads and loads of things we can do. I'm going to move on to a couple that we use in a second. Chris?
Yeah, so finding past papers.
Okay, good. Okay, so past papers.
Examiner's
Okay.
report.
Examiner's
Yes.
report.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, I brought a couple of examples in. We do these sorts of things straight away. So examiner's report, any different from that? Any other ideas?
We've done, where two teachers have been teaching an A-level module, we've looked at the question by question analysis, and they teach very differently, and what they did was they sat down and decided which children responded the best to their method of teaching, and in the end they worked out that they discussed their approaches and then worked out the best approach that should be documented for the scheme of work. They sort of did it that way.
Yeah. I mean, what do we think to exam scripts and things like that? You know, what do we feel? How much information do we get out of it? When you've looked at them in the past, do you think it's very subjective to that individual? It's hard to pick it out, or do you get a wide enough range of them to sample it and go, actually, there's a common pattern here? Because, you know, if you've got a group of 4 and you get those 4 back, you know, is the sample size big enough to actually say, well, actually, you know, we got these poor results because, you know, that individual did try, or is the more common pattern coming about? Go on, Chris.
I think it's important that you look at that in the context of the examiner's report, because you might have been underachieving their strength or vice versa.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to use the examiner's input, who's looked at all of it, you know, or a huge sample, and compare it to your small improvement perhaps. Just to give you some guidance, then you need to relate it back to the scheme of work, which is very important. And then there's going to be personal reflection from each teacher as well, saying, you know, was I confident about that unit? Which I think we've got social knowledge is saying in the list.
Okay. So we've got those there. I'm going to show a couple of ideas now, which we use. I'm not going to take any sort of plaudits for this. I nicked this from a CL meeting a couple of years ago. Mike Pillin. We've got Mike Pillin 2011 there. Okay, assessment booklet. If you want to just pick one of these up, this is for, take one of those off the front there. This is what we've used for the last couple of years. And the benefits are down this side here. Can I have that one this side?
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Now, quite simply, this has helped me as a curriculum leader. It's helped me as a teacher do a lot of different things. Okay. Firstly, it causes me to give some formative feedback at the right time. Moxted recently has highlighted this issue for a dialogue from the student that said, students, you're doing all this lovely marking, but the students aren't coming back to you with any comments. This forces, this assessment booklet, for you to say, right, I want to know what you're doing, and give me a comment about, a detailed comment about how it's gone. So we would, you know, religiously fill out this booklet, okay, give them a test at the end of a unit or whatever it may be. It feeds in, and I've tracked it in to Go for Schools as well, so that will then feed into the tracking points that CLs have done, and it'll allow the subject teacher to literally go, click, that's where I am, I know exactly where that child is. It supports the school marking policy, which we've talked about. Mike literally always gets his estimations spot on. That's what I picked out, and as a PE department we've closed that gap, okay, considerably. A couple of years ago we were miles away, okay, and this has helped, you know, tighten up the theory side of things and say, right, this is, we're getting a pattern here, we know this child's a B, boom, straight in there. We use them, take them into parents' evenings, feedback to parents and so on, okay, and it does tick that box with Ofsted and so on there. So that's one thing that we look at. We take it on a little bit further, and we would break it down into the different questions that we're using. So this is our Year 12 group at the moment. We've thrown them in for an early test because we had a tracking point at the end of September, and we've literally, you know, given them a test, okay. That's an example of what we've done. So we fed back to them there, they've put a comment in them there, And then what I would do, or the teacher would do, would look for patterns in their comments to say, you know, if they've written, I don't understand such and such, and there's 4 or 5 of them doing exactly the same, we'll pick that on, and then that'll inform the planning, and we'll go back to that. And that's the key point. To raise the standard, you've got to have that available to you in the first place to check that. Looking at that there, this is Mr. Ross's section, that's my section. We've got the red, amber, greens. Okay, obviously I've got an individual here who's got a lot of reds. Okay, can you suggest anything that what we might need to do for the next half term or the next couple of weeks based on AO1, AO2, AO3 feedback, looking at that data? Is there any homework? Is there anything I should be focusing on? You know, where's a major area? If you looked at
If you look there, you second column down,
Here?
there's an awful, no, one, yeah, that, all that
Yeah.
red down there,
yeah.
obviously
Okay,
needs
so
something.
that's anatomy physiology, brilliant. So I'm just looking at the colours. That is the 10-mark question straight away. They haven't understood that because there's a high chunk of it in there. Okay, this person here is obviously, there's a lot of red, so quite simply they've got to pull the finger out. If I look at that person's folder, it'd be all over the place. Just looking at the colours, it allows me to actually map across and give some specifics. Okay, this person here, Jason White, is clearly on track, but here, again, in my section, he's got to have some extra work on that extended question. So I can zone it in to the areas that they need. Here, obviously the AO2 and the knowledge isn't too bad apart from one person, so I'm happy with that. But Mr. Ross, I can then as a CL say to him, you need to set some AO3 work, some higher, you know, AO3 questions, extended questions, because they haven't got it, and look at it from there. Just delve down a little bit deeper into what's going on. There's another section on there as well, because I've got 3 things coming in, and this might be useful for you, Andy. I've got another section coming in, which is Miss Hudson's, and I can start to pick trends and patterns all over the place, and just from the colours, and then, you know, we can go from there. But it's literally on the spot, and we move on to the next one, but that all comes from that booklet there as well.
As you say, Bryn, then it gives the students themselves a personalised agenda,
Yeah.
doesn't it? You know, any one of those students can see, I'm okay in that, and
Yeah.
those are the 2 areas I need to now
Yeah.
focus on. So you've got differentiation.
Parents' meetings, it's so much easier, 6th form come in and you just got it all in there, or whatever it is. For those people who like a bit of stretch and challenge, okay, and those IT people, we would, this is from a year 11 group, we would show them this, and basically after the exam there, okay, or the year 11 group, we would put this into some tables, and all this does again is it breaks it down into AO1, AO2, AO3. So obviously this person here, I've taken their names out, they didn't get any marks whatsoever for the AO3 question. Okay, there's some extra extended work for homework, there's no point, they're not too bad on their general knowledge here. This person here exactly the same, that person there, and you can tailor what you're doing to that. Okay, so that's one little thing that we use there. Hopefully this will work, I'm not an IT boy. Okay, this is particularly useful for yourself, Chris, who is looking at EAQA. Why didn't that go in there?
IT department have just arrived on mass here to sort it out.
Can I open that link?
Need
So
to
if you
take
need to play the slideshow.
Got to go what?
Need to play the slideshow presentation.
What,
If you
current
go
slide?
Yeah, F5. Yeah, current slide.
Oh, F5.
It's flashing the bottom, but it is there.
That one.
Yeah, it's already open. If you close it down again,
Close
it's
it
flashing
down.
bottom left.
Is it?
Bottom left, yeah.
Okay,
See
sorry about
Google Chrome, it's yellow. Next
Yeah,
to start.
that one there?
Yeah.
Loving it. Okay. Right. This is one thing that we sort of used to drill even deeper into what's going on. Sorry about that. Just take me 2 minutes to get it up. So we would use EAQA. We would go into here, okay, and start looking at GCSE results or whatever. And this is why I switched from OCR. It was very scarce, couldn't get information out, everything tied into one. And obviously this might work with art as well. If I just click onto here, it allows me to look at various things. So I go into GCSE PE, okay, I go down to here, I've got PE, I've got RE, I've got art in there. So I'm going to click on PE, okay, and it'll allow me to look at last year, year before that, and I know Andy's looking at various bits, you know, on this as well. So I can start to compare and do some analysis of Felpham Community College, okay, and how we did. We're in the blue there, okay, and I start to do some analysis. I can drill even deeper, and I can start to break this down into units and components, okay? So this is the theory component here. So I can see in blue, we've exceeded similar centres, and we've done quite well here as well with all other AQA centres. This is the practical unit here as well. So we've done really well on that bar chart. I want to drill even deeper on the theory because I know that's an area of concern. So this is the theory grades. I can view it by topics, I can view it individually by questions. So I would go into here every summer at the end of the summer holidays while I'm still topping up my tan, okay, and I can start to look at this. I know there's 3 sections of the course. We're in red. There's 3 sections. Felpham have come out higher in 2, and there's been a little bit of an issue here in the middle section. But you can see we're right up there. And, you know, overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I want to look into here, and I want to look at the questions specifically. So I can look at the questions, I can look at the students, and I can start to drill into each question. You will notice in this section we are in blue and we are exceeding in most of those questions. I'm going to look for a pattern. I'm not happy with 16, okay, because I'm a competitive individual. We've managed to beat every other centre. So I'm going to look at that and I'll make a note of it to see what's gone on in that area there. Again, we go down and I can actually view the marks and individually. So if I look into there and I can break it down and go even more into that, I can look at the question and drill down into it. Now, all the ideas that you came up with at the start are brilliant. View the scheme of work, everything else. It does require a bit of time. I do get people in the team to sort of look at that and have a little look at it and pick patterns out. But I think that is one change that we've made to make, you know, the grades go up. We've really drilled deep into those things to see, right, what is it that we're not doing quite well. We've looked, first of all, if there's 2 components, practical theory, or 3 sections to your course. You know, I know you mentioned, Andy, the control assessment wasn't right. Zoning on that first of all. We did it with our theory work, and we just looked at that and started to look at it. So I've gone back over the last 3 years and I look for patterns. Is it a topic area that isn't being taught? Because I can see that question is coming up in the last 3 years. Is it the teacher? So I can look at the teacher and say, right, you know, what's gone on there, and we can have a dialogue and a chat and work through that specifically. But I think sometimes I used to just come in as a SEAL and go, right, okay, I'm going to change the way I'm teaching. Okay, I'm not bothered that, you know, I've got good lessons coming out all the time. It must be me, I'm going to change the way I'm teaching. I think it's more about, you know, that is specific to last year's group. You know, if the same things are coming up from the year before, it's got to be something within our teaching then, if there's patterns occurring. You can break it down even more than that and look at individual students or whatever, and it's, you know, I get the other teachers in there to actually look at it and use it, and they come back to me with it. It would be impossible for you, Andy, to get all those courses going and look at it, and you know, they've got to want to use that to then inform their own teaching and actually say, I know from looking at those individual questions that I taught the GCSE last year, and one of the questions I didn't cover it. So I've made a note to myself for 2014-15, I've got to make sure I cover that aspect. I can break it down into every parameter that I want to break it down into. And I think that's a good method of, you know, of making my teaching a little bit tighter and raise standards across the board. Any questions on that?
Have you got hard evidence then, Bryn, of work that you've done on a particular area that then the following year you've actually come up and you're on a par with other schools? You know, are there areas that you have focused on over time?
I think it's just about the AO3 questions have been the main drive, because we know 20% of the exam, that's where the struggle, you know, the students have struggled. So we've really looked at that, and even if we just snip into that a little bit, it's fine. The odd topic area, if I go down there in one of my 3 sections and there's a lot of FCC blue grades lower than others, I know the teaching hasn't been that some, you know, the students haven't understood that at all. And at the moment, in the last 3-4 years, when I've been really looking at this, you know, it's just the odd one where we're not up where we should be. I mean, there might be a trend where a specific group have not actually answered it nationally, and then I will say, why hasn't anybody answered that question nationally? Because obviously, you know, that was just the way it was worded, or a topic that we weren't familiar with. So that's not going to inform the planning. We'll be aware of it, but it's not the be all and the end all. I just look for lots more patterns, and I know it's additional work, but it does make things easier, I think, for me as an individual teacher, because I know I've got a better understanding of where I'm literally at, because I know where the stumbling blocks are, you know, in the whole scenario, really. If I go back to this, the last little slide, I'll sum it up. I think these are the sort of things, you know, you've come up with in terms of, you know, using exam papers, past scripts. You know, EAQA, I do recommend it. I find it, you know, we do OCI at A level, and the only method I have of getting information back from them is getting exam papers back. It's very difficult to section it out, break it down, and we don't do as well in that area because of that. And I am looking to change when the new changes come in 2016. I think logical assessment and monitoring, those books have made things easier with Go for Schools, because we put them in place, and it forces you to get some results out. It allows me to get some marking done, formative. There you go, you know, Mr. Inspector last week, and he did praise the marking that one of the members of the team had done, because it was there, they could see some progression. We've got their year 12 folders into 13 or 10 into 11, so it's there. You can see, you know, you can see on that first screen all the reds, and I would expect as a CL or a teacher for that to start going amber green, and it does, because the students know where they're at and so on. This is a difficult one, because I do recommend it, exam board marking. It is a little bit of, you know, extra pressure for staff around March, April time or whatever. I know Patrick Hargood's done it, who's had some excellent results in the past. Lindsay does it in my section. She marked over 700 GCSE papers this time round, and it is invaluable, the inside information you get. It does give you a little bit of extra money, and it does allow you to understand what's going on, because I do still believe a number of changes have been made in March and April when the exams have taken place, and you don't know about it. You know, I know phone calls are going on between AQA and GCSE and Lindsay here to them, and the examiner's saying, oh, we've been told to adjust this mark and you've got to, you know, tighten it up here. And there's certain things you can't see in an examiner's feedback sheet. I know for a fact one of the questions, the extended questions, they've decided to change it this year, and only through being a marker would we ever know that as at Felpham Community College. And what we do then is, I get, Lindsay to pop out an email to all the staff who teach AQAPE around here to say, right, this change has occurred and be aware of it. Usually an 8-mark question would want 3 points made and fully explain, point, evidence, explanation. This year, they changed that to a specific type of question which required 8 separate responses, which caught us out. And we can see that using EAQA. So, those are the little things, and I think in brief, I think it's looking a little bit deeper, if you can, as a CL or an individual teacher, to say, right, what is it? It's not just my teaching. We have got excellent teachers in here, and I think it's about saying, you're always going to improve your practice by looking at something. Every year, I know I'm going to take something forward from last year, and I tweak with it slightly, because something has changed with the exam board or whatever it may be, and that's about it really. Any questions about that? Anything that I've mentioned? Chris?
I think it's really interesting, because I'm not on these examples, I'm not a curriculum leader, as you know. I think it's really interesting, this focus on the technicalities of it and using the data in that way, because that enables your colleagues to maintain their confidence, which will be hit if they're in the low result group, to say, let's look at the mechanics of our job and deal with that. It's about changing the things they can change, because we can't necessarily reinvent our teaching room at present, but we can become very specific about the areas that we focus on. So it makes it more of a mechanical analysis than an emotional one, which is what people feel when the results are bad. So this actually keeps them on an even keel with a very pragmatic and practical approach to improvement, which I think is sensible, actually from a morale point of view as a team leader as well.
Yeah, I mean, I put it back to the staff to look at this, so they all know how to look at this in terms of GCSE and use it. And I've got a competitive bunch, so they love a table going up or down, and they get disappointed if it's not quite right. I will change the groups 2 or 3 times in a year from year 10 across to 11 based on what I'm seeing in front of me and the data that I'm getting. And I think that benefits the students. It pushes them at various times, it gives them a bit of relief if they're under the cosh or whatever it may be. And I think the teachers look at it as in the department as we're trying to get that result as a department, and where can we add a bit of value to this student and get people moving forward in the right way. And it just makes the whole teaching a little bit easier. I probably, if I were in here today looking at this, I'd probably be looking at it thinking, God, there's a folder, there's this, there's that, and the other things. That folder, we got most of the material out of there online, so we were able to get tests online that are out there. You've all got your own tests. It's just putting it in one logical place and listening to what people want. So I've listened to what Ofsted have said, listened to what the school have said, and line managers and everything else, and put it into a logical area which saves work in the long run, because the students know where they're at. If somebody walks into the room and says, right, what's your current grade, how are you going to get to the next level, it's bang, bang. And then if I'm making a mistake in the classroom, because something's not working and I'm being observed, there's other evidence they're looking at, and it makes me feel as a subject teacher a little bit more confident that I haven't got evidence in front of me and you can't see certain things going on. And I think the most important thing is, forget about observations and things like that. The students do love the feedback, they do like to see where they're at, and they can articulate, where they're going as well. And it didn't take long to get that up and running, and together. and it does help CLs who've got to pull various bits and pieces in together. And you know, there's lots of other things you can do. I mean, Nick Keys helped me set up the stretching challenge just by putting in, you know, some stats and bits and pieces. You know, and it just helped things move forward really.
Thank you.
Hmm?
Yeah, thanks
Okay.
very much, Bryn. Thank you.
Thank you very much.